All right. I want to just say, wow, and it's really good to see all of you tonight. Um, I will be doing a little Q&A occasionally. I had originally prepared it to do them all at the end, but I think sometimes it's good to give us a break from a lot of pictures. You'll be seeing a lot of pictures tonight, and that'll give you a chance to ask the questions that you want to ask. I am part of a fellowship that is called the Amplify Israel Rabbinic Fellowship. We are the second cohort to exist. There is a third cohort already, or group already forming. I am pro-Israel, putting it out there. No surprise, okay? I love Israel. Yes, there are concerns and problems. No country is perfect, and neither is Israel. So having said that, I want to acknowledge that there is much of what we talk about and what we hear about in the news that I think to some of us actually feels rather existential, to which we would rage back with all of our breath and say, no, you're so wrong. On other issues, we may rage with all of our breath to say, but what about? And aren't we supposed to be moral and ethical and all of that? To which I say, yes, we are to be moral and ethical. We are Jews. We have souls. We acknowledge the souls in other people, all of creation. And so with that, we still have problems. That's just what we have. And Israel, I'm hoping to have as one of my many goals and takeaways this evening, is that Israel resides in a tough neighborhood. And I will be showing you a little bit of that. I'm going to preface what I start today with something that I've had this from the PJ Library, and it's from 2012. I've had this a long time, and it really means something to me here. And it's this pieces, like of a face, of a person. And there's this quote right here. It's by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And it says, if you believe breaking is possible, believe fixing is possible. So as we go through tonight, I am not going to promise that I know in any way, shape, or form how to fix. I am just trying to keep up with whatever problems seem to keep arising. And I'm trying to expand my knowledge of Israel, of the area, of the dynamics in the Middle East. And to me, it's overwhelming. And there are days that I sometimes my husband begs me, please put down that book, put down that news article. And yet I have a drive to understand more. Understanding, however, is not going to fix anything. But if we can understand, then perhaps we can recognize what is fiction, what is true, what we should actually respond to, and perhaps that gives us some insight and a greater expanding within our own hearts to care about this little tiny strip of land right here, Israel. That's it, right there. I brought this because I heard a comedian recently say, you can find Israel on the map, but Israel's so small you can't even put the word Israel inside the country on the map. So true. Right here is Gaza. Right here is what is called the West Bank, what others will call, what I like to call Samaria and Jordan. Okay, I'm sorry, here's Jordan, Judea. So Samaria and Judea, West Bank, it was actually named that by Jordan. So just the geography. We have Lebanon to the north, Syria here. We've been hearing a lot about Syria in the news. It's this big dark aqua green right here. Lebanon in the light blue right here. Jordan right here. Saudi Arabia here. Egypt. Okay? You've been hearing a lot, and I'm not going to have the right glasses on for anything tonight. I may switch. Yemen. We've been hearing a lot about Yemen, missiles coming in from Yemen, or the Houthis. they're right over in here in this part of Yemen is where they've been firing off missiles, not rockets. Won't go that far. It's huge distance from here all the way over in towards Tel Aviv, which is where many of them have been shot. Okay, huge distance, further than Iran even. Iran, Iraq, Turkey. This is what we have right here. We have Qatar. We hear a lot about them in the news as well. Okay, we have Bahrain, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Just gives you a little geography. Okay. If at any time during the presentation you want to get up and come closer and look at the map, feel free to do so. Okay. Here, this is this little tiny country, Israel. Okay, maps are never as perfectly up to date as I could, but this one is pretty good. The particular places that I'm going to talk about here is, of course, this is the Eilat, the most southern part in Israel, and then all the way up here. Okay, where we have the north nearby Kiryat Shmona. I will tell you about a kibbutz up here just south of where my finger, actually right where my finger is, Kibbutz Manara. And we were just about 800 feet from the Lebanese border on that kibbutz. Down here is Gaza. I was over in this area right in here. And I was on a kibbutz right here, right about where my finger is. And that's kibbutz Nachal Oz. And that was about 800 meters, about half a mile from Gaza. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of the geography and the proximity. And everything is very close. You can go from top to bottom, bottom to top in about 6 hours in Israel. And just as a side note, when I was there, after our group left about a year and a half ago, Sheila, we were there in Israel together. We arrived and left out of Tel Aviv, but when everyone left, I found a little moshav somewhere right in here to go stay at for a few days. But I also went birding for about 3 days with a bird guide. And we went, and I had this unique experience of knowing what it was like to drive all the way up here, going all the way up and across up here. Okay, up to Mount Hermon, right at the very top, right up in here. Okay. And I'll tell you more about this later. We had dinner on a very long day in Majdal Shams. You may have heard that of the news. I'll mention that again. And then we did other birding areas down here where there's a lot of agriculture. And then we went down here past Dimona to other places in the Negev, even across this railroad line. We were right down in here. And we did birding there for desert birds. So I know what it feels like to actually be in the land and how varied and beautiful the land is. When I went this past January to Israel with the Amplify Israel group, it was a very different experience. We were there to see what was going on in Israel about a year and a half after 10/7, after October 7th. So I'm going to change my glasses. I won't be able to see you well now, but I'll do the best I can, and I can see you if you raise your hands. All right. I may switch them back again. It's what I may need to do. Okay. This is what you see when you arrive at the airport and you're leaving the terminals where you're walking through, and you see all of these posters here. They are posters of hostages. Posters by families wanting their loved ones home. Stickers put on them by family and friends. It's all there for everyone who arrives to see. I get to my hotel. The hotel is the Carlton. And right here, after I've registered and I'm about to leave the lobby, they won't let me leave the lobby till I see these instructions. I don't know if you can read them, but it says on the back of the front door of your room, you'll find a drawing description of the location of your room on the floor and the best way to reach a protected space. They would not let me leave the lobby without loading down the home front command app. And the app, when it's opened up and there's nothing to alert about, looks like this. And if it does, it says time of arrival to a protected room, you have 1.5 minutes to get all the way downstairs to a protected area. That's the time. It's not because Israel is giving you that time. That's the time that is going to take between the siren and the either shrapnel or the missile falling. Okay? So this is a good one to see. All right, that's what you want your app to look like. I can't help but show you my view from my room. It was beautiful. Within that hotel, we met many, I'm not going to say many people, but significant people. Haviv Redig Gur. Anybody listen to Ask Haviv Anything? Yeah, yeah. Ask Haviv Anything, a podcast. He's awesome. I really recommend him. Dr. Einat Wilf. She was in the IDF. She was an intelligence officer. She was policy advisor to Shimon Peres, and she is author of 7 books. I really recommend any of her books. Jonathan Greenblatt, he came in from America, and he was there for a short time. He's the director of and CEO of the ADL. The last person here that is in this list is Dr. Kohav Elkayam Levy, and she is an expert in international law. She's done groundbreaking work and extremely difficult work. I don't have a picture of her here, but I do want you to know that this is a person with her committee that has documented and interviewed family after family who have survived and done documentation on exactly what happened on 10/7 with a special focus to what is now called and what they have termed in a groundbreaking paper, genocide. People were left alive in certain families so that they could carry the trauma on and witness parents being killed in front of little kids. Terrible, terrible things. I'm going to show someone to you that at the Nova Festival, there, by no rights should he be alive. They actually looked at him in the car as he was passing cars with dead bodies and let him pass and leave. In 2 hours, he was in Tel Aviv, and he has never been the same. So that was intentional. That was intentional. Okay. By the way, all of these photos, except for one, and you'll know why, is mine. These are my photos. They're not doctored. PowerPoint did a couple things to them just to make them fade here and put words over here. That's it. They're my photos from my phone. So I wanted to make sure that that you know that I am the photographer. Yes, we went out for walks. Tel Aviv was amazing. The first thing that I saw before I got to my hotel even was a guy riding a bike carrying a surfboard about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He was heading to the beach. Okay. However, for no one in Israel is 10/7 any distance away. It's always in our hearts and on our minds. This is a country that is not the same. And you'll see 7/10, 10/7. It's just the way they write the date. Bring them home is the message. The impact and the response to what happened is everywhere. I'm going to skip over these. I've done them here. This is for use later. We weren't there for very long before we get in our bus and we head south from Tel Aviv towards various sites near the Gaza border. The first place that we stopped was Givat HaTatzpitaniot. I ask you to say that 5 times fast. What that means is the hill of the observers. You may have heard of the IDF intelligence women who were looking at what was going on in Gaza and gave warnings. And their reports were not being, over the days and weeks, they said there's something organizing here. And they didn't get it. They weren't heard. They weren't heard. And these are women that are 18 to about 20 years old. Their duty was to conduct reconnaissance on the border with Gaza. as well as to operate remote control gun turrets stationed on what they call the Iron Wall, the dividing between Israel and Gaza. And most soldiers at the Nahal Oz base that they were on were not provided a handgun or a rifle to defend themselves, despite the fact that this military outpost is less than a kilometer. What is that, like half a mile from Gaza? And the soldiers there were easily defeated. 16 unarmed female field observers, these intelligence IDF soldiers, were murdered. And they were members of IDF Unit 414, and 7 were kidnapped. Of the 7 captured, 1 was killed in captivity, 1 was rescued by an IDF raid a few weeks later, and 5 were released during the 2025 Gaza war ceasefire after spending more than 470 days in captivity. The pathway that we're walking on here is marked by stones. Their families put these together with their daughters. They're all young women. Their daughter's picture, their name, their favorite quote, their birth date. Below each one is a ceramic flower of a poppy anemone, or a kalaniot in Hebrew. And I believe that is the national flower. And I see this flower everywhere in Israel. It's a memorial. We stopped and looked at nearly every one. I wish I could, bring every single one to you. At the top of the memorial, this is what we're looking out upon. We're looking out upon Gaza, across the field into Gaza. You can see as we look into Gaza, I don't know how well you can see it. I think I've got some that you can see further. The buildings are no longer tall structures. They've intentionally been taken down because they are so close and too much of a target, place to be targeted shooting from. I believe I understand that is an observation balloon that you can see up there on the right. We also heard gunfire and explosions while we were there. Did I feel safe when we heard the boom on that? It felt pretty close. But we were on this side of the fence. Okay. Our next stop, a short ride away, is Kibbutz Nahal Oz. It's 800 meters from the Gaza border. It's right next to the Nahal Oz base. And they were both among the first targets on October 7th. Just a field, looking into the area, give you a sense of, it's beautiful, it's serene, we were there, and for the most part, things were very quiet. Yeah, it looks like here. Nahal Oz, the kibbutz, is known for its video communication towers. Took me a long time to figure out, are those having to do with the base? What are those? You can see along here a fence, a very, very sturdy fence around the immediate area of Nahal Oz kibbutz. This is the security booth at the fence line of Nahal Oz kibbutz. The security people were the first to be taken out. They had no chance. A kibbutz is a communal place to live. It's like a farming, agriculture, or some place. It's like a socialist type of thing where they all live together. It's morphed into more independent living in some kibbutzim now. Those are often called moshavim or a moshav, that are more independent, and you do what you want within, and they kind of have a gated community, kind of like that. But the kibbutz originated from having a common dining area, common childcare, common quarters for the children, and those kinds of things. So it was like a socialist type of kind of an idyllic life, so to speak. And that was what it was intended to be originally, and how they lived. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of weapons around, but what happens is that on this kibbutz, and this is tragic, is that the power was taken out, and the locking systems for where the guns were held on the kibbutz were not openable because of the power being out. There were individuals who had their own weaponry, but it was all too little. Yeah, yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. The question was, what about weapons? Sorry, we're gonna get her. I'll get it next time. Thank you. Okay, did I repeat your question? Okay, all right. Next, this is where the fence is. And if you look at this fence right along here, not that tall, but this is one fence. There's agriculture in the middle in this strip. Right on the other side of that field there that's being farmed. It was being there was tractors in there tilling soil that day. Right on the other side is the fence to Gaza. So it's a very small strip of land that divides them with the two fences. It's incredible how close it is. If you look right here, is it right here? You can see the fencing. I think here you can see much of the buildings there. I mean, this was a pretty substantial city. This is all rubble. Okay, I don't know what people would have to move back to. I don't think they do. I think they're pitching tents in what remains of streets. Okay, there's not much left. But that's the fencing. And I think what's interesting here is that I recently learned, as there was so much to hear that day that we were being given this tour, is that the terrorists got through their fence pretty easily. They came across, and earlier in the morning, there were advanced units who had set explosives underneath the fences. And if you look, these look a whole lot like what these fences would have been made of. And so I believe we are looking right there. And that's what Daniel Rachamim was telling us. You'll see him in a moment, that this is where they came through. They just came right through the fencing. And they drove, they walked, motorcycles. They just flowed right through. Right there, right where we were standing. And this gentleman here is a longtime resident of Kibbutz Nahal Oz. And his name is Danny Rachamim, and he is giving the tour today for all of this kibbutz. Just a longer look at the fence line and the agriculture. Another look back at, if you notice, this area there was explosions here. And if you look, things caught fire. The trees so if I'm looking at the fence, these trees are behind me. They also caught fire. Fires were set. Everything on the ground here is ash. They had cattle. They do still have cattle. People drive in daily, even though they're not living on the kibbutz. They drive in daily to care for the cattle. Cattle were killed, and even the cattle. Another item on the kibbutz is this. It is a migunit, and it's a bomb shelter. Even on a kibbutz, way out in the sticks, practically in the countryside, they're going to have a migunit. People need to have a bomb shelter, and they are found throughout Israel. This is where we met with Danny Rachamim, and we all sat together and learned about the kibbutz. This is their meeting building over here, if you can imagine this beautiful kibbutz, and they would all come and meet and have like a social hall and places to dance and all those kinds of things. This is that's the left side of it. This is the right side of it. And I'm going to ask you to look a little closer. Tell me what you see. If you're going to say the peanut in the middle of the room, yes, I see that too. What else do you see? Boarded up windows. Yeah, right there. Right, even here. No one was living in this building, but they came in and shot things up. Having passed through that, and in this room here, we had a little refreshment, and then they took us into that larger room, and we learned the history of this kibbutz. Don't ask me what I remember. I just remember it sounding pretty cool. We went on to another area in the kibbutz, and these are homes that were among the first to be attacked. They were not open for us to go inside. I think that is correct. I think it honors the people that lived there for us to not be walking in amongst their things where they lived and where they died and where they were stolen. This area, she just asked, is this area a museum? No, it is not a museum. They are still figuring out what to do on these kibbutzim. What do we do? People go back to live there? Do we renovate? Do we plow them under and build new? They're still trying to figure it out. Keep in mind, not everyone is home. Not all the dead are home. So it may still feel a bit premature to kind of, put a period at the end of the sentence here. It's not over. About 180 terrorists attacked the kibbutz itself, and it was defended by its local security team as well as a team of about 11 fighters from the Yamas tactical unit of the Israel Border Police. And they had been stationed in the kibbutz at the time to deal with potential demonstrations along the Gaza border, which happened from time to time. And during the initial 3 hours of fighting, the first wave of militants, miraculously enough, was largely held back. Although a widespread massacre had at that point been prevented, the remaining militants managed to target the homes of elderly residents, killing 2 men. One of them's name was Shlomo Ron, who was among the founders of the kibbutz. And he sacrificed himself to save his wife and his daughters and his grandson, who were at home with him. And they sheltered. He stayed in the house, giving himself as kind of the one to shoot rather than take his family. And he made it look as though he was there alone, so that they wouldn't go looking for his family. They shot him dead, but they did not search the house, which was what he had hoped for. However, after that first wave at 10 a.m., a second wave of terrorists breached the kibbutz and over many hours carried out numerous murders and abductions. It's hard to stand there sometimes and just look at these homes, and you see the outside that look kind of messy, and you just don't want to necessarily know exactly what happened.
How far was this from the festival?
From the festival, it's only a few miles away. I'm going to go there next. Yeah. By the way, I found out recently in some of my research that Golda Meir's great-great-nephew, Hadar Kama, was killed at Kibbutz Nachal Oz, and he had been a soldier in a reconnaissance unit that was sent to rescue the citizens of the kibbutz. This is, I will never forget, standing right here in front of this house. Danny Rachamim, who had the burgundy vest, giving us the tour, he told us about this 17-year-old by the name of Tomer Elkayim. And he was pulled from this house, from his family, and he was forced to go with the terrorists door to door to open up and say, "Hi, it's Tomer. Everything's okay. It's okay to come out. You can open the door. It's all right." And when he did so, the people would be shot dead. He got smart to that right away, and Danny told us that he tried his best to say, "Oh, these people are on vacation. There's nobody here. Let's go to the next house." So in that way, he was able to save as many as he could. These people are in Tel Aviv right now. These people are in the U.S. right now. There's nobody home, but he couldn't do that for everybody. So this boy was taken as bait. Um, he and his family was hauled off to Gaza, and what had been happening was broadcast through Facebook Live on his mother's Facebook account on his mother's phone. And they took his father and his mother and his sisters, who were only 8 and 15, and they were taken into Gaza. And Tomer and his mother and father were murdered on the way into Gaza by the terrorists. His sisters Ella and Daphna were released in November, a couple months after everything, as part of a temporary ceasefire deal. This is a home in the newer section of the kibbutz, and I was like, "Oh, this looks like you could just move into this," but everything is vacant, and battles took place here too. And I looked at a map that showed where all the battles on Nahal Oz took place, and it's just devastating. I will need to move on, but I just want to let you know each speaker we encountered, each teacher who taught us something, we gave them a gift and thanked them. So we had just given him a gift, and he was smiling and saying, "Thank you for coming." We thanked him for telling us these stories. This is my dear friend, Rabbi Cantor Mika Simmerly, and she placed an Israeli flag on the table in front of this home. I've looked at these windows many times, and I think that these windows had been shattered because these look like tags that remain inside brand new windows when they're installed. I appreciated her thinking to bring and to put this flag here. I felt like it was a symbolic reclaiming. We headed southeast toward Kibbutz Re'im, and a little further on are the grounds where the Nova Festival was held. And I mentioned these kalanit, these ceramic flowers, and they're all over the place, especially at the Nova Festival grounds. This was a place of dancing. This was a place where people gathered and loved one another and put their arms around one another, sang, looked up at the stars in the sky and the sun coming up, and were thrilled to be alive and thrilled to be with one another. Yeah, some of it was drug-induced, and the music was loud. But at 6:29 in the morning, the music went off, and the notice went out. Everybody pack up and go. There's rockets. Party's over. Unfortunately, so many did not get out. People attended the Nova Festival, not just from Israel, but people came from all over the world. These kinds of festivals are a thing that take place all over the world. I guess you kind of have to be into that to know what that all means. I'm not even going to pretend. This is the stage from which the music occurred. I don't really want to talk about it, but people were hung from trees after they were killed. This man is writing a Torah scroll right there at the Nova site in honor and prayer for Ron Gvili and all the hostages to bring them home. Shai Klein Weinstein is a Nova survivor, and he shared with us how he survived. He got there late, or I guess really early in the morning on the 7th, like the wee hours of the morning. And he met up with his friends there, and they were partying and dancing, and drugs were involved, alcohol was involved. Um, and we listened to him tell his story. And it wasn't like everybody thought at the very beginning, oh, there's rockets, there's stuff. They kind of went, you know what, this is Israel. Rockets happen all the time. And oh yeah, the Iron Dome's gonna take them out. We have to watch out for the pieces coming down. And they're kind of used to that. But then after a while, they actually heard the pop, 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 pop of bullets. And he said, that's when he said to his friends, we have got to get out of here, get in the car. Because they were slowly putting their stuff together and putting it in the car. They left whatever was on the ground and they hopped in the car. And by then there was so much traffic getting out of the festival. And keep in mind too that there were people that were shot dead already in the cars, and so the cars stop right there. That himself is causing a traffic jam. He's telling this just chaotic story, of how they were trying to get out, and he had like 5 or 6 people in the car with him. And he goes out, and he's in a field at some point, and they got out of the car thinking they were going to run, and his friend said, no, let's get back in the car. I think we have a better chance there. And he says that his friend likely saved their lives. Um, as they got back into the car, they get back on the highway and swerving and going around checkpoints and different things, because there were checkpoints from police and people that were already there. And the story is a little confusing, but there were also checkpoints that the terrorists had put up and had stopped cars and killed people. And at one point, he's going around a car, and he's going like as close as here with somebody with a rifle who's pointing it at, looking at them in the car. And then he just kind of turns like that, as though to say, go ahead. They wanted to make sure that people felt terrorized, and he was. He drove, and he drove on the highways, going past cars with dead people in them shot up. And he made his way back to Tel Aviv within about 2 hours. It wasn't an easy drive. And they got there, and they got to their living room or wherever they went to, and they just didn't know what to do with themselves. He did take pictures along the way, and I think he took over 50 pictures and identified people. And he was able to identify, out of 52 different people, he was able to identify 50 of them still alive. And he got a hold of every single one afterwards. He speaks now in different areas, including Los Angeles and in California, telling his story. He does admit that he is definitely, most people in Israel are getting therapy. But still, sleep and concentration is elusive. It's not easy. Then I mentioned all the cars. The next place that we went to, all in the same day right here, is Tecuma, and it is a memorial site. It was initially a site for all of the cars that were shot up and burned up and had people. I mean, all of that. When they were cleared out and emptied, they had to put the vehicle someplace, and so they ended up putting it into this place, and I'll show you some of them in just a moment. But also, this is a place where we met a man named Rami Davidan, and our guide Doron translated for us. He is an Israeli Bedouin. This is a little sign, the burnt vehicles compound. This was an ambulance. Ambulances were definitely shot at and burned. I have a little more in here than I really wanted to on the left here. Sorry about that. But Rami Davidan is an Israeli farmer, and he rescued for 12 hours people from the Nova Festival. He was called by a friend who frantically WhatsApped him. It's like texting, okay? He was WhatsApped by a friend who said, please, at the Nova Festival. My daughter's there. Please go get her. And so he set out, and as he was looking, he did find other people. And then his number got to people on WhatsApp and said, this Rami guy just saved me. You've got to call Rami. And so after just a couple hours, his phone is just filling up with people calling for help. And one by one, or small groups, he went after them to help save them. He encountered terrorists along the way, but I know he was skilled in special forces or something. I'm sure he served in the IDF, but he also could speak Arabic. And so he was able to play off that he's one of them. Like, oh man, yeah, okay, I'll take these guys back. I'll take them back to, I'll drive them, that kind of a thing. And so he had really close calls himself. But I was just amazed listening to this guy and his story. The reason why I talked about people being up in those trees is because he came across people, girls mostly, tied up into trees, dead. This is the most horrible thing I will tell you today. And he cut them down, and he said over each one, he said the Shema. He has sought therapy for what he saw and for images that he will likely never forget. He found out the next day that his cousin's daughter, Ophir, was murdered on the army base where she served. Of it all and his therapy, he says, it's personally difficult for me to handle everything that he saw. But he says, I'll overcome it. It'll take time. And I believe him. I look at that smile that he was able to smile at Doran, and I think he will. I want to show you one more family. Right there in front of that ambulance. I met this family. So I was just kind of walking around after we were talking with Rami and just looking at the ambulance and saying, and I said hello to these people. And this is mom, this is dad. I did not catch their names. This is their younger son. This is their older son. This son, these four were there because he recognized Rami, and Rami saved him. So they hung out and waited till Rami finished speaking to us. They wanted to thank Rami in person. And yes, I was there. Stephanie.
For his idea to get there and defend?
It took a long time. It took at least till evening to even just get to the kibbutzim and assess and get enough people there. Keep in mind, it was Sukkot. It was a holiday. Okay? And they're like on half staff on a holiday much of the time. And yeah, I know. And then it took another couple of days to get all of the terrorists who were like lone terrorist stragglers that hadn't gotten back into Gaza yet. It took a few days to get everybody. Yeah. I hope I answered your question well enough. There's reports that detail when people arrived. Much of what arrived were lone IDF retirees who grabbed their gun, put on their boots, and went south because they were getting communications from family members or people they knew, and they wanted to do something. Some were successful, and some died. But I don't think that with that kind of skill and you got a gun, you're going to save whoever you can, even at the cost of your own life. And that's what they did. And I think many people did get saved. Okay, northward. Sderot is a city. It's an Israeli city that is the closest city to Gaza. It has a population, or it had a population of about 33,000 people. Very close. It's within about a mile from the northeast corner of Gaza. This right here that you're looking at is these towers right here on this picture is a memorial dedicated to the Battle of the Sderot and the heroes of the police station there. And 60 terrorists entered Sderot in pickup trucks and on foot, and they just shot everything that was moving. They showed us films. It was horrible. I don't have any to show you. I didn't take pictures of any of the film. It's enough that I tell you. Um, the terrorists came in through the main highways into the city, and they took over Begin Boulevard, the main artery in Sderot, and they encircled the police station. This is the beautiful police station of how it looked before. And after a couple of hours, this is what it looked like. And this right here, Tachanat Sderot, this means destruction of the station. The terrorists immediately went in and killed the police officers. They were stationed on the ground floor, and they killed them with RPGs, grenades, and gunfire. They were taken out. These are pictures of each one of them, and they're all heroes of the station. The station became a death trap because any police officers who had heard the crazy shooting and came to help, anybody who happened to be there, the soldiers who were off duty and came running in their shorts, the terrorists took over the station and killed everyone in sight from the vicinity, from the lookout areas of the police station, and all 8 were killed. The old station, it took snipers and forces from elite units and a helicopter, an IDF helicopter, and finally a bulldozer to take down the police station with 26 terrorists inside. Destroying the police station and all the munitions and the 26 terrorists that were inside was necessary to save the lives of those in Sderot and the city itself. Okay, anybody have questions so far? Yes, when we were there back in January, there were definitely people there, but there were a lot of people visiting that memorial site. It took me a lot of pictures just to get mostly just the memorial site. A lot of people were there. School children were being given tours there. Yes, there were people living there. I saw a lot of Hasidic people walking up and down the street as well. Yeah. Okay. We headed back to Tel Aviv, and we met with Reut Karp from Kibbutz Re'im. And Reut has quite a story. I had to write down most of this. She has an interesting story. Her partner, Devere, was a chocolatier, and they had been divorced. And his partner, Stav, they were on the kibbutz. And Kibbutz Re'im. And at about 8:20, terrorists entered her ex-husband's home, and 2 of their 3 children were there in the home. And Devere, her ex-husband, lunged at the terrorists who were coming through their front door with an axe. But he tried to protect the kids, and he was murdered right in front of their eyes. His partner Stav was also murdered. She tried to protect them as well. And Daria, the daughter, and Lavi, their son, they were covered up, hiding under a blanket, although they could see what was going on. And the terrorist kind of calmed them down, and he took a lipstick, probably Stav's lipstick, and wrote on the wall, "The Al-Qassam people don't murder children." For 3 hours, Reut said that she was on the phone with her daughter Daria, calming her down and hearing her breathe heavily and in fear. And she was hearing somebody still inside the house, and she told her daughter to be silent. What I understood also happened is not just people getting killed, but people also came into and onto the kibbutzim to steal things from people's houses. So you have no idea who was in the house, whether it was a terrorist or people from Gaza who came in to steal after the terrorists left the house. She was hearing some people in there, and her other daughter, Leah, was spending time with a friend at an adjacent kibbutz. She recorded some of the conversation that was on her phone, and here's a little taste of it. She actually made a piece of artwork which is showing her outlining the conversation here, and she's pointing to different phrases on it, but this is a sampling. Devere, her husband, her ex-husband, texted her on WhatsApp, said, "There's a big mess here. There's a heavy shooting in the kibbutz." Reut, shooting inside the kibbutz? Devere, yes, that's how it sounds. Reut. She wrote that she's in a safe place, talking about their daughter Leah, that at an adjacent kibbutz. Orly is calming Leah down. And Daria, Mom, it's Daria. Dad's been murdered. Stav too. Help. And Reut stays on the phone texting with Daria for the next 3 hours. And this, of course, is the picture that she made of the dialogue back and forth, not just her, but the other members of Kibbutz Re'im. This is her husband, the chocolatier, her ex-husband, the chocolatier. I always say husband because I know she loves him. Anyway, this is a picture of her in a coffee shop. I'm going to show you a bigger picture in a moment right here. It's called Cafe Otef. She decided that she would dedicate herself to keeping Devere's legacy alive and to show her children that life is powerful. And Devere's picture is always right there, right behind her. She took his chocolate recipes and then sent it to a friend who helped to recreate them, to give them a formula of how to do the chocolate. I must admit, I bought several bags of that chocolate, and somehow they disappeared at my house. Reut Karp is her name. She employs members of Kibbutz Re'im in the shop to work as shopkeepers and baristas. And you can see, of course, the poppy anemone. All right, the evening was not yet over. This was an incredible day. I met a woman, we all met, a woman named Yocheved Lifshitz. She was taken hostage along with her husband, although she was taken to one place and her husband was taken to another. It's her grandson, Daniel, sitting there to her left. And I just so admire her. Her husband was still in captivity when we spoke to them. They reported having that they figured it was about a 4% chance that Oded, her husband, was still alive. And indeed, I believe he came home sometime in February with one of those ceasefire and then hostage exchanges. You remember the things on the stages where the hostages were released, and it was this big thing. Yeah. She said that over the years, Gazans have come from Gaza into Israel to work on the kibbutzim that surround the Gaza envelope. And they know the kibbutzim like the back of their hand. They know where people live. They knew exactly where Oded and Yocheved Lifshitz lived. They went after them intentionally. Her kibbutz, which she lived on, was near Oz, and 117 of the 400 residents were either killed or kidnapped. It's horrendous. Yocheved and Oded lived on the kibbutz there, and he helped found the kibbutz over 70 years ago. They worked all their lives, Oded and Lifshitz and Yocheved Lifshitz, they worked all their lives for social justice and peace. And they would drive people from Gaza into Israel, especially pediatric cancer patients, Palestinian pediatric cancer patients, so that they could go into Israel and get treatment and go into Israel for their chemotherapy appointments. At Oded's funeral, well after the time, a month or so after I was there, I noted that at Oded's funeral, she said, "Our abduction and your death has shaken me to the core. We fought all through the years for social justice, for peace. To my sorrow, we were hit by a terrible blow by those we helped on the other side. I stand here staggered to see the number of graves and the terrible destruction of our community that was completely abandoned on October 7th." We went to Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. The energy coming from Hostage Square is incredible. We were there on Shabbat on a Saturday night, welcoming Havdalah together, and their boards up with a countdown of how many, or count up whatever, of how many days and seconds and minutes and seconds it's been. There's music, there's chanting, there's people like this. Here we have Lee Siegel holding a picture of his brother Keith, who was taken hostage, and he was freed on February 1st after 484 days in captivity. I cannot imagine. And 62 of 1,000 people in Kibbutz Kfar Aza were killed. And next to him over here is the owner. His name is Steve, and I can't remember his last name at the moment. I hopefully will remember later. He is an owner of a shoe factory in the north of Israel where we went, and it's the Neot shoe factory. So if anybody has Tevas or Neots. And would you tell me the name of this person in the middle, will ya?
Yeah, so this just goes to show how small a
Yeah.
world this is. Some of you may recognize Bradley Burston, who did a speaker series for us from Israel, the guy in the back.
Right here.
So he is friends with these two, and Steve's last name is Lax, L-A-X.
Yeah.
And these two guys on each side of him are very close friends. And Rabbi Lisa unknowingly took a picture of a guy that I grew up with.
It just happened that way. All right. Okay. Just gives you a little bit. There were so many people there, I didn't even get a chance to go, through all of what there was to see and do there at Hostage Square. We were there shoulder to shoulder with people, singing Havdalah prayers marking the end of Shabbat. It was incredible. It was this interesting mix of holding tradition, holding one another, and this incredible sense of we're running out of time. We've got to get them home. Yeah. This is my friend Mika. I showed her earlier. She laid the flag in front of that home. A long Passover table set at the first Passover after October 7th for all of those who were taken hostage. This here says time is running out. More pictures, the number of days, people protesting, showing signs for all to see and take pictures of. I am hoping that some of what I'm conveying is people not that people are terrorized, although they are. I think I got the feeling everybody in Israel is in therapy. I would be. I feel like sometimes I ought to be. Okay? I felt 10/7 very deeply. But what I don't want anybody to think is that the Israelis that I met were victims. Not Yocheved, not Oded, not Shai Klein Weinstein, not anybody. They stand firm with a purpose to tell their story. Reut Karp has a daughter that cannot even go to school. I said, is your daughter back in school, Daria? She said, it's a good day if my daughter can get up and take a shower and eat. That is a good day. So I do want to say that there are those who are, this is a child that we're talking about here, but the adults that I met are standing tall and standing strong. People going to Hostage Square all the time, people doing everything that they could. Daniel, sitting next to Yocheved, was telling his story about how he dropped I think he had a yoga practice on one side and then he had a vineyard on another. He was doing both. He dropped everything he was doing so that he could learn how to lobby people from different countries to their cause, to have hostages released, to do whatever they can with whatever governments they could contact. They'd been to the Vatican, they'd been to the UK, they'd been to America, they'd been all over. These are ordinary people learning how to do and doing extraordinary things, and they are extraordinary. My next slide, we went to the Marcus National Blood Services Center. I was really taken by this for a couple reasons. One is this building was the most fortified place I'd ever seen in my life. We went 4 or 5 whatever stories down, and it was incredibly reinforced. I don't even know. We saw their ambulances and logistics trucks. We saw their logistics center when calls come in. I had to take a picture of this. Magen David Adom, saving lives. It's in our blood. The next slide. This is the blood donation department. Go to the left. Human milk bank. Go to the right. I didn't know such a thing existed. After 10/7, it was very much in need. They're also responsible for making sure that that there are in Israel AEDs all over the place. Automated external defibrillators. Anybody who's taken a CPR class knows what these are, because it shows the value of saving a life. Pikuach nefesh. You can see Jewish values all over Israel being lived, not just spoken about, lived. We did have fun. We spent a couple hours. I don't even know where we were. It was somewhere in Tel Aviv. And we were making candy and sunflower packets. We ate a little candy too for soldiers that were heading north to the Lebanese border. We had a great time. It was kind of fun to have that sort of thing to do. Speaking of amazing people, we also engaged in conversations with IDF soldiers. We got to meet 3 soldiers. We gained insights into their experience. We wonder sometimes in the United States, if something happened, would our young people step up? Israel knows, for Israel, what has happened. Their young people have stepped up and are stepping up and continue to step up. This soldier right here is married to this beautiful lady. This is a rabbi who is just one of my friends, Sam, who has just given them a gift to say thank you for being with us. Everybody got gifts. We learned what their experiences are like and how they cope with their duties. They go into duty, active duty, for 3-4 weeks at a time, and then they're home for a few days. Maybe they're in for a week, and then after an operation is over, and then they come back. It's an interesting life. I met and sat next to a young woman right here. Am I pointing to it? No, I'm not. So he is married to her. She's Prager's in this picture. And this is a young woman named Shira, and lovely, lovely young woman who is in university and also serves with a explosives unit. And so she goes in, she comes back, and she is a medic with them in case things were to happen, and little things do, sometimes big things. And so with this demolition unit, they're dedicated, they're driven, and they have stepped up to defend their country. And what they say over and over is what they want for their, these are IDF soldiers. What they want is for their country and their people to be safe. They want people to be safe everywhere. And they want so much to go home and get on with their lives. They want to go back to school, go back to their work. We went on Shabbat to Beit Daniel in Tel Aviv. I'm only including this because there's so many pictures. I just wanted to say that that day that we were being honored there, and a friend in Santa Rosa actually saw me and texted me that he took a picture of me, and he said, I'll have to send it to you. So this is one of two pictures actually that I did not take. And he said he watches services from California, of the Shabbat services in Beit Daniel in Tel Aviv every Shabbat. So it was just a happenstance. And so he sent me the picture that he took from his video feed. This is it. What I was so impressed with this day is right here on this bima, from right here, a young boy became bar mitzvah. And becoming bar mitzvah when you already speak Hebrew, the Torah is not so hard, you kind of, it's like reading, Old English, it's like, it's not exactly the common everyday language, but you understand it and you can read the letters. What hit me was, after meeting the soldiers and everywhere we had been so far, he had an older brother that I guessed was about 17. And all I could think of was that in the next year or so, that proud mama and papa are going to have to say, be safe, my son, as he goes off and serves in the IDF. It's just what was on my mind. All right. I gave you this geography earlier. There's a reason. We had a moment to study with Dr. Uzi Rabi. And what I wanted to show you here is that he's this amazing Middle Eastern doctor, professor. I mean, his knowledge is like, could fill the room. And I just tried to follow what he was saying. I took pictures of some of the slides that he had, and this is one that I think illustrated a lot of what's going on, is that Iran, a lot of people go, Israel, why won't Israel do this? Why won't Israel do that? What people don't understand is that Iran is, okay, so Syria, this was January, remember. So Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, under Iranian influence or control. And that's the ones in the striped. Okay, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, right up there, right next to Syria on the coast. And then Iran plays a destabilizing role in Kuwait, Bahrain, the Gaza Strip, and Yemen. So we have Yemen, Bahrain, the Gaza Strip, and then where's Yemen? Right here. I said Yemen, Kuwait, wherever, Kuwait, right there. Okay, in all of these places, Iran plays a forcible destabilizing role. Okay, if we don't understand this about the Middle East, this is essential, because everybody wants to blame everything on Israel, and if Israel would just quit it, everything would be fine. Anything but the case. Okay, Israel, okay, I'm getting into my own opinion here for a moment. I think, and please forgive me if you disagree, and of course that's the root of things, is to at least talk about them, but I think that a lot is to be said for what Israel is doing, and the young people that I just showed you are stepping up to defend their own borders. They're defending more than just their own borders. They're defending the West. And if Iran could just go all the way through and have what Iran wants, or what I fear, Turkey could be next. And I don't know quite what's going on in Syria. I think that instead of vilifying Israel, I think that Israel should be acknowledged for what they're up front and center doing. To give the full description of this, Dr. Uzi Rabi, he is the Israeli professor and director of the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies at Tel Aviv University. That's quite a title. Okay, as I promised, I'm gonna move north in Israel because we traveled north as well. Northern Israel, a little bit of the landscape. It was beautiful. We had a little rain that day. We're driving to Kibbutz Manara on the Lebanese border. So when I mentioned, okay, we've just been down in here, I brought you back up into Tel Aviv. We have, if you notice, when you're driving, you have to drive through here to get anywhere in the south. You have to drive this way just to get to Jerusalem. See how this is all surrounded by what is either called the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, and you know it's really close right in here. So you drive from here back into Tel Aviv, and then you have to take these highways, and you have to take them up the coast usually, and then go up here, and then go across, and then go north. And if you see this up here where it says Kiryat Shmona, that is an area right up on the Lebanese, right up next to the Lebanese border, way up in the north part of Israel. Kibbutz Manara, that I'm going to tell you or show you pictures of, is just below that, right on the border. Hang in there, this will blow your mind. Okay. The north had just opened up because a ceasefire had just been called up there. I forget what the date is, but I don't even know if I put that in my brain what the date was. But this is the entrance, okay? That is a man with, gun, and I'm sure it was loaded. Right here, this says Kibbutz Manara. This is the first view of Kibbutz Manara that I had, and I went, oh, what a lovely place. All right. Orna Weinstein is going to give us a tour. This is this lovely lady right here. And boy, she's a tough lady. She's like the matriarch of Kibbutz Manara. And we were the first group to come by and tour Kibbutz Manara. She was there not just to meet us, but she was doing an analysis and an assessment of all the properties the buildings on the property and the condition of the property to evaluate damage and the extent of repairs that are needed up there. Let me show you why. We were standing on the road at the kibbutz, and we're looking straight over the fence here, right? This fence right here is the border. This is a UNIFIL station right here, by the way. And that is a Lebanese town. Kibbutz Manara and that Lebanese town ages ago would share eggs, share butter, share a cup of sugar, share recipes, have dinner together. That's how it used to be. Kibbutz Manara sits just over 400 feet from the Lebanese border. I didn't tell my husband that till I got back later. I didn't know. Another view of it, the community was home to about 260 people before they were evacuated when Hezbollah entered the war between Israel and Hamas in 2023. This kibbutz is one of the hardest hit per capita communities in Israel. Approximately 60,000 people were evacuated from northern Israel when Hezbollah entered the scene after Hamas attacked. UNIFIL, as I mentioned a moment ago, the UN interim force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, a truck can be seen right here. Right there, it says UN. That's a UNIFIL truck. One of my colleagues, I'm not going to say who, made a hand motion toward their direction. All right. We're walking along Things look sort of okay. I see some burnt trees here and there, but it looked okay. I'm looking at buildings. They seem okay. Maybe a little rough around the edges. Ah, hold on. These buildings were severely damaged by anti-tank missiles coming over this very short distance from Lebanon by Hezbollah into their area. And see that right there? There's a hole, a small, not a relatively small hole. An anti-tank missile makes a hole in the outside, goes inside, and incinerates everything. People were evacuated. This is a building that we're approaching. We're going to go in it. This one right here. The building is standing. That's Orna. She's actually telling us a little bit about the owner of that particular unit. Surfboards and everything. Next door neighbors. And she's going up the steps, and we're looking like, where are you going? You're going in here? I couldn't believe it. As we went up those very steps, I see on the outside, and I'm looking up the railing. This is the inside of the building. And the electrical wiring is just absolutely melted, and the plastic just dripped off of it. Everything was just blown up and charred. Everything. The heat was, I think it was quick and it was intense. This was someone's home. And probably had a beautiful view. Again, you can tell I cannot get over how everything melted. That's just one building. Things seemed okay. Some of them. That one looks a little rough around the edges. I looked a little closer. We have a car here. Yikes. Another building, outbuilding on the property. This building didn't look so good. As we were leaving, a film crew arrived from an Israeli TV station and was filming Orna as she was speaking to us. We're leaving here, Kibbutz Manara. That's what the entry gate really looks like from the inside. Back on the road again. Here we're in northern Israel, and we did a quick visit to the Alma Research and Education Center. We were taught about the Hezbollah attacks towards non-evacuated areas. And this was between October 8th, 2023, right after October 7th, up to almost a year later, September 17th, 2024. September 17th is pertinent because that is when the pagers went off in the Hezbollah leadership's hands. She was explaining to us about the evacuations and where people were evacuated from all along the border towns right up here with Lebanon. She was also telling us how long the missiles that they knew to be in Lebanon, how far they could travel and how quickly, and which missiles could travel how far, and how many people were under threat. She happened to take a picture from her backyard, and this is what the missiles, that's one of the pictures of what it looked like. Again, she's reviewing the different events and how many attacks occurred in that time frame that I had just told you about. Over 3,000 attacks from the north. How much did we hear from the media about what was happening in the north? Not much. If anybody heard that, they said not much. Israel's offense in Lebanon and their main goals is what she was discussing next. And that included to remove Hezbollah's strategic threat on Israel. Yes, there was one. The degradation of their rockets and missile capabilities, elimination of Hezbollah's centers of power, and preventing another invasion, clearing the areas next to the border. The Israeli cabinet made a decision to add the return of the northern residents back home to the war goals. It is still a goal. Not everybody is back home in the north. It takes a long time to get everything moving again once things are safe. It's tough to repopulate once every little bit of infrastructure, people, manpower is out. Schools, banks, shops, doctors. Think of everything we rely on today. And you've got to get not only those people, but everybody else back working. You might notice at the top left up there, I think it's pretty small, but what it says is 25th of August, 2024, preemptive strike on Hezbollah. Pagers exploded on September 17th, 2024, with the walkie-talkies the next day on the 18th of September last year. I'm going to show you why. They had figured out who the Hezbollah's Jihad Council, the military high command, were. These are the people that had been eliminated. They had all charts on all of these people and the necessary elimination of them. They had retrieved weapons and missiles that were in Lebanon under Hezbollah. Why is all this so concerning? Because Hamas, the Hezbollah, these H words, the Hezbollah, it's called the Radwan sectors of attack on northern Israel. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but Israeli and Western intelligence had determined that Hezbollah had an organized plan to attack northern Israel, had the munitions, and were ready and set to carry it out. Hezbollah plans to hit the north with hundreds of missiles all at once. This is a map of Lebanon and Israel. So you can see this is in pictorial form what the plan was. As a first painful strike against the people there in northern Israel. Next, the forces will advance as follows. The first force will infiltrate the border through Al-Nakura and reach Rosh Hanikra, 4 miles east of Nahariya, aiming to conquer the city. 55,000 Israelis reside in the seacoast city of Nahariya. Then the trapped civilians will be used as human shields. The second force will advance on Shlomi, a town of some 6,500 Israelis, 300 yards east of Al-Nakura. The town will overpower the town in its close vicinity. This will enable Hezbollah to control the main junction leading to several cities. The junction leads to routes 89 and route 899, which, as the map shows, leads to other routes, thus making Nahariya difficult to supply and reinforce. Meanwhile, small, well-trained squads will advance by sea in well-equipped small boats to Israel's coast. The third force will head deeper to 3 Arab villages, Kfar Bina, Dir al-Assad, and Majd al-Kurum, forgive my pronunciation if I got that wrong, north of the city of Carmel, thus dominating Route 85. That's the route I pointed to earlier. I've been on it. With control of Route 85, Hezbollah will split Sfat and the Galilee hills from the coast and will be able to protect and support its troops in Nahariya and Shlomi, impeding the IDF's arrival from bases in central Israel by intense fire from the 3 Arab villages. We even have pictures of our highways. The fourth force will head into southeastern Wadi Kadesh and seize the kibbutzim Yifta and Malkiah, and 1 agricultural community. Control of those points will protect Hezbollah from Israeli fire throughout most of the region. Hezbollah's planned attack on the Galilee. According to Western analyses and Israeli assessments, according to the analyses, Hezbollah was training some 5,000 fighters for seizing cities of the Upper Galilee, as 5 invading forces aiming to conquer the 5 sectors in the Upper Galilee. You think those pagers, the exploding pagers and the exploding walkie-talkies was just for offense? It was defensive. It was clearly defensive. Just as a point of interest, I was right here on Kibbutz Menara, and the Hajir sector was going to be going into that, among other areas, if they had not done that in September of 2024, disabling Hezbollah. It wasn't animosity. It wasn't, It was defensive. They knew they were about to be attacked in northern Israel. Did that make it to the news? I didn't know about it till January. All right. They're giving us much more information. We are also given some inside information that they have from like Al Jazeera television, which I don't understand a word of it. Should I listen to it in Arabic? Doesn't mean anything to me. But here on February 24th in Lebanon, I believe it was 2024, this is how Hezbollah's death culture indoctrination sounds. We will sacrifice everything for Sheikh Naim Qassem. Okay. Naim Qassem has a long history in Shia political activism and has been a deputy secretary general of Hezbollah since 1991. And he's got a whole huge other history. What this also says is this man being filmed and on TV says, I have a 7-month-old baby, and if he, Naim Qassem, wants him, I will give him. These women right down here. Oh, and by the way, after the death of Hassan Nasrallah, he's the one that was killed in the Hezbollah, in the massive Israeli airstrike on southern suburbs of Beirut on the 27th of September in 2024. A little more here, looking at these women right here. What this says here is on Mr. Hassan's, what does it say here? On the path to liberating Jerusalem. Let's see. If I can't read it, you can't read it. We are ready to offer more martyrs than this. Only if there is only one of us left. Even if all our homes are gone, we will set up tents and sit in the streets, won't leave our land, even if Israel kills us and takes more martyrs. The reporter says, may God protect you. These are children holding pictures of Naim Qassem, the new leader of Hezbollah after Hassan Nasrallah was killed in September of 2024. These children look very young. They're being trained already. I had mentioned the Iranian corridor. It's this area through here. Iran, Iraq, Syria, weaponry to Lebanon. That was the path. We wonder if what has happened in Syria is going to interrupt that. We certainly hope so. This missile right here was manufactured in 2023 and immediately smuggled in from Iran through that corridor into Lebanon. They've got the dates and everything right there. And when they captured that missile, they read it and they go, yep, that's where it's from. They know where this weaponry is from. More weaponry, all this proof of what has been happening. There is a question, and I think it still is a question. Are Western countries normalizing al-Julani prematurely? He is the new, I guess, leader in Syria at this time. We're still wondering who the man really is. This is from the Basijis. It's an organization for mobilization of the oppressed, is what it means, and it's a paramilitary volunteer militia within the IRGC. It's the Iranian Armed Forces, kind of like that. Okay, they want Al-Aqsa flood too. And we want to bring an end to the Zionists, God willing. That day is near. That day is very near. Those in the occupied territories should know. Many ask us, when will True Promise 3 occur? True Promise 3 has occurred. That was the 12-day war when Iran sent all those missiles into Israel back, what was it, in June, towards the end of June. So the first two operations, True Promise 1 and True Promise 2, were in April and October of 2024. And involved missiles and drone strikes against Israeli targets. At the time of this Traumas 3 had not yet occurred, because that just occurred in June, and I was there in January. This is an interesting, should you want to even just take a picture of that and want to know more, this is a very interesting place to go to for more information, israel-alma.org. I just thought people might want to know a little bit more. I'm going to get you out of here soon and also have you be able to ask more questions. But I just want to pause here on this lovely picture of Majdal Shams and see, is there questions so far? I just gave you a whole lot of information, especially with what was going on in northern Israel. It was just absolutely beautiful when I was birding up there with the bird guide Carmel that I said to earlier. And when we came down Mount Hermon, and we came down, you can almost see the mountain up there. There's a cloud in front of it, but we came down and it was late in the day, and we were hungry, and we stopped at just some little dive right there in Majdal Shams, right in this town. And we had been on a food culinary tour for 9 straight days, and here I'm off, and I'm like trying to get my normal stomach back, and I didn't really feel like eating that much, but I had to eat a little. This Druze man, back in June of 2023, he was a restaurateur there, is probably still, and he brought us, some salads and some dinner, and I basically ordered some pita and hummus, and he was like, no, what's wrong? Here, you can have this. He brought that to me, but that wasn't enough. And I thought it was plenty. But he kept bringing more because, God forbid, we shouldn't get fed. And he was so sweet. And I kept trying to get my bird guide, Carmel, to explain to him, no, I've just had a lot of food over the last week. And and he did not understand. But what left me was just the sweetness of this Druze man who owned and operated this restaurant in Majdal Shams. So come about a year later, July 27th, 2024, and a missile from Hezbollah came over and hit a soccer field in Majdal Shams where children were playing soccer. 12 children there were killed, and it was personal to me. I think I collapsed and cried in my husband's lap. This is the scenario here. A parking lot, fencing, fine. We get a little closer and we see more fencing with the children's pictures on it. And this is our guide again, and we're meeting one of the dads right here, and he's telling his story. He is an ambulance driver. He's a medic. And when the sirens went off and when the missile landed and he knew where they were driving to, he knew his daughter was there. And he had to ask himself the question as he was driving there, when I get there, am I going to be a medic or am I going to be a dad? And he knew he was going to be dad first. Unfortunately, when he got there, one of the first bodies he found was his daughter's, and there was nothing to do. So he treated other children. They did the best they could with the surviving children. But he told me their story. And this day, the wind was blowing and it was cold. You can see us wrapped up. And this gentleman right over here, he's a dad too. And he wasn't speaking, but I went up to him just to kind of say a kind word, or just to kind of look him in the eye and just, make a face that means I care. And as I did so, he just put his arms around me. And I put my arms around him and I just sobbed. And it's just that kind of a place. They're wonderful people who they just want to live normal lives, and here they are in Israel living their lives. It was kind of cute. Some of the guys from our our group are younger, and they played soccer out there for a minute or two before we got the talk and started talking. It was kind of sweet. I'm walking back towards the parking lot, and I hadn't really taken in the scope of damage, but I had talked to them and heard their story, but it hadn't quite hit me yet. I'm walking toward the exit, walking that way. I've seen all this. I'm walking out. Right where they're walking to is the exit. I turn from that exit and I look this way. And I didn't really get it till I saw it from this angle. This is where the missile landed, right in here. And this is the fence where it went through to just destroy everything. And this is where the children died. And I think I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it was a stray missile or if there were many, or if there were others, if they were destroyed in the air. I'm not sure, but this is one that got through and hit. And I didn't see it till this moment as we were leaving. And I just stood there and cried. And one of my fellow rabbis put his arms around me, and I sobbed. I have to share shoes. I have to share the Naot factory. Anybody hear of Tevas? Tevas, okay, Naot, Teva. They were the same company. I think I don't know. I'm not going to follow all that. But what I want you to know is this is a place that stayed open when everything else was evacuated. And I think that they are a great example of Israeli resilience and dedication and teamwork. And yes, I bought 3 pairs of shoes. One was I gave to someone. I took a picture of this part of the presentation because he said the number of employees in Naot are 400, 70% women. And the Naot employees are a diverse community. Right there in northern Israel, working there together are Muslims, Druze, Bedouins, Christians, and Jews, all working together there in the Galil in northern Israel. They're dedicated. They work together. They're like family up there. There were times where people couldn't get home to their houses, and they stayed there on the factory grounds together. They support the IDF, and they pray for the hostages to come home. A little bit of a beautiful sunset from northern Israel. Again, a reminder that the impact of and response to October 7th was everywhere. And as I headed home, it turns out I was safe the whole time. The Houthis, however, sent a missile over from Yemen in towards Tel Aviv 3 hours after my plane took off. And this is what my friend Josh's phone said. He took shelter and he was on a later flight. And this message right here is what Israelis live with almost daily, but I've been monitoring it. It's at least twice a week. That right there. Time of arrival to the protective room, 1.5 minutes. Enter the protected space and stay in it for 10 minutes. And if you're closer to where it's from, the rocket or missile is from, the less time you have and the longer you need to stay. This is what they live with all the time. All right. Questions at this point? There you go.
Reminded me of things that happened to us. We lived 11 years in Israel. We are South American, but we had 3 wars because it was 63 to 74. The thing is, Shlomo, my husband, who was a doctor, he worked, did his military service as a doctor in Beit Holim Puria Hospital, which is on the upper mountains close to Tiberiades. So he was there working as a soldier. The thing is, at the midnight, a car came, a tender, what they call, and brought the roots of that place that you mentioned, Majd al-Ham.
Majd al-Shams.
Yeah. So there was one of the persons from that place that was working on machine. There was an explosion and he lost his arm. So they brought him as a, to be treated. And Shlomo, thank goodness, kind of saved his life because he was bleeding and it wasn't that close. They had to drive. The thing is, he treated them, and it took a while, like 1 year, until this person recovered from all the problems he had. And then they came and invited him. I won't say me because, the Druze are friends of Israel and are protected by Israel, but they are Arabs culturally. The thing was that they didn't talk to me. I was there young with 2 children, and we were running after them because they always walk like that. The women walk always backward in the back, They can't really join the men. But I had that same feeling. This is what reminded me of them because they were so nice, so grateful. They took us to see the little hospital and they took us to see the school and the where the chickens were and everything that you can. It was a very small place. So this is what I remember because I remember that they gave us what they call chasa Arabic.
Yes, they're great at the
big,
food.
huge lettuces. They gave us also coffee and all the implements, to have Turkish coffee. I still have them.
That's wonderful. All right.
That's what
I
I
just-
remember.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else questions? Yes. Thank you,
I have a
Debbie.
big question.
Yes.
Rabbi, did this trip change you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to share with you some of my takeaways and what I hope are some of yours. Right here, I said this very clearly, at least the first part, is that Israelis are resilient. Yes, there are issues with leadership, and the war is ongoing. Okay? Israelis want peace, but the statistics right now show that they do not trust their neighbors. It's not a surprise. There is ongoing rockets and bombings and martyrdom. I am very clear that healing for the Israeli people and Jews worldwide will only happen when all the hostages are home. I'm very clear on that. The other thing that I've tried to convey and really came home to me was that Israelis, we as Jews, we value life. I think that is a commonality in the West, is that there is a value of life. Yes, honey. Yes, Ken. Hold on. Microphone.
Just real quick, based on what you said about value of life, can you quickly tell the story about your study partner?
Yeah, this is actually an important story. I study weekly some Talmud with a partner who, and she gives me permission to tell this story. And we were talking about earlier this year what goes on, and I said, listen, I'm sure most Palestinians really just want to, go to work, go home, feed their families, take the kids to school, and, just have a normal life. And they very likely, I can't imagine that they want anything different than what we want. And She paused for a moment, and she didn't tell me I was wrong, but she told me a story. And she said, Lisa, I had a very good Palestinian friend when I was growing up. And we would play together from time to time, and we were good friends. We played together. And when we got to college, when we got to university, I went and visited her at her dorm room. And she said, and I saw above her bed at the dorm room this lovely picture of a woman, of a young woman. And she said, I said to my friend, she's telling me this, she said, who's that picture of? Is that your sister? Is that your mom, an aunt? Who is that? She's very pretty. And she says, oh, she said it in Hebrew, but she said she's a martyr. And she said at that moment, without a word, I turned on my heel and I left her dorm room. And I have not spoken to her since. And all I could say was, oh, I get it. When an average college student puts up a martyr and a big picture above their bed, that says something. I hate generalizing. I do not like to generalize. Hate is a strong word. I do not like to generalize. But when someone who has had that kind of experience comes back and tells me this, and with the things that I've studied and read recently, I do know that there are and have been Arabs who have saved Jewish lives in very trying circumstances. And when Arabs have sought to kill Jews, there have been Arab neighbors who have stood up to them and protected them. But there are many who have not, and who have gotten caught up in jihad and have joined up in doing terrible things. So while it's hard, you cannot generalize, but on the same thing, can you trust? And this is a terrible way to live for both people. Thank you for reminding me. How far have I gotten? Israelis, we have a culture that values life. This is both a virtue and a weakness. I mentioned this earlier. The willingness for Israel's enemies to sacrifice martyrs for the cause is one of their strengths. And that in itself, whether it means that they die in fighting, or they die of starvation, or they die because they're in the way of a rocket, or they all kinds of ways that people die for the cause. But I would also say that their dying, I think it shreds our souls. It hurts over here. I don't want people to be taught a death culture and to die. I don't want that. I want a world at peace, and I am not alone in that desire. It shreds Israel's moral image with what's going on and what's in the news and what's being claimed against Israel.
With that, with sort of what the whole thing presented in the news about the Palestinians and what's happening with them.
Thank you. It's a good question, and that's a whole nother talk. But there is a lot going on in the news that what we don't understand over here is that when, let's say, AP News, let's say they have access to reporting in Gaza, they have to report what is approved for them to report. If they don't, that person reporting something different than what is the approved reporting, they're not allowed back and can never work there again. They also, and take this to note, is that they also put in danger the rest of their team who may also still be there and working there. Okay? They may endanger future teams who may be allowed in. It's a terrible thing to have happen. Okay. Another question? Thank you.
I just wanted to ask from your perspective, also the people that you visited with there, how do you think about a path forward? Is it just survival mode at this point? Um, since the
Yeah.
formation of the state of Israel, it's been difficult. This is probably the most difficult.
Tough neighborhood.
But, how do you look at 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead? Or is there even space in anyone's head for that?
I think there has to be place in someone's head for that. And I hope there is. I think there are people that are looking at this from a many years out plan. By the way, what's happening now is I believe, part of like 100-year strategy. I will recommend a book. It's called The Ghosts of a Holy War by Yardena Schwartz. It just came out in the last month or so. And I recommend reading it because it goes back 100 years ago of what was going on in Israel, or what was then Palestine, and talks about the Jews and the Arabs who lived side by side, and then what's happening there with all of what was going on with the British Mandate and all of that. It goes into the history, but it also has a very personal story in it that makes it very readable, and it is very readable. I do recommend that book. The Ghosts of a Holy War, Yardena Schwartz. I am no Middle East expert, okay? I am not a Dr. Uzi Rabi, but I think Iran has a lot to do with what's going on. If Iran didn't have the capacity, and if they could just focus on their own people and take care of Iranians, okay, and not persecute women because they have their hijab on wrong, or even wearing a hijab or not. I'm worried about Turkey too. I'm a little worried about them. I think that their control over certain areas is very concerning. And I think that if there's some way to get places like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the UAE to bring some courage, and I shouldn't say courage, I'm sure they have courage, just leadership. So I'll leave it at that, please. So if they bring some leadership in there to be able to take care of the most immediate problem, which is Gaza, but that will not happen. No one is going to lift a finger for Gaza as long as there are terrorists still in Gaza. Okay? Now, that makes me back up to the next thing, which is that one of the most immediate problems is educating children from knee high, from when they can speak, to educate them that Jews and Israel is evil and are pigs, and you must strive to kill them at every chance you get. Okay, kindergartens have graduation ceremonies with a rifle and pictures of Israelis that they want to kill. That's their graduation ceremony. I've seen it in pictures. It doesn't take much to search it and find it. Very proud parents sitting in the audience with the kids up there on the stage, mock killing Israelis. They're taught this from a very young age. We've got to stop this. Okay, the education that's going in to educate these children to do this it's hurting every single child, family, generation, and it's been going on for a while, not just in Gaza, but also, I'll just say, West Bank and the Palestinians there. The other thing is that there are 5 to 6 million people who have refugee status as Palestinians, and they want to be able to have the right of return. The idea of a two-state solution comes from the here Israel, you take this, here Palestinians, you take that, and the Israel goes, yes, thank you. Palestinians and the whole Arab world says no, and the next day, Israel is in a fight, an existential fight. Okay, 1948. It's been it's been since the get-go not about the Palestinians having their land. I'm going to tell you that right out. It's about Israel not having the land. And they will sacrifice whatever they have to not have Israel be there. So education, sources of threat and power, sources of education. Another source of education is Qatar. There's a lot of money coming from Qatar. It's like a very, very, very incredibly wealthy mafia family that fund terrorists all over the world. They also fund education in the United States and all other different things as well. And of course, we go to them for negotiations. Okay. I know I'm probably over time. Are there additional burning questions? I really want to make a couple other points here. Is really this Dr. Kohav El-Kayam Levy. I want you to think about her. She has done amazing work in coining the word kinocide. Okay, it's a word, if you come away with nothing else, remember the word kinocide. Okay, side means death. Okay, death of kin, families. Okay, it's a psychological work that she's done with Dr. Erwin Kotler to see the psychological background of what was done on 10/7, as well as it can be seen in other places as well. I want to make the importance that this is a ground war, an information war, and a psychological war. And we are feeling perhaps not the ground war directly, but we feel every time we look at our phone and look at the news, we feel the information war, and we also feel a psychological war. We are here as people together. I'm sure if we started having one-on-one discussions, we'd be talking about, but what about the Palestinians? What about feeding them? They're starving, they're hungry. Are we committing genocide? And we're having these conversations because we are worried about our own moral character and our compassion. And we should be. We should always check in on that. But I think this psychological war is designed for us to do that and even argue and split up among ourselves as a result. Has anybody lost friends because you see differently what's going on? Yeah. I don't want that to happen. I also said Israel's in a rough neighborhood, not just from Gaza, but from Judea, Samaria, the West Bank, and from Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen and Iraq and Iran. Syria, it's too early to tell. Iran's impact reach, I just spoke about that. And then Syria's overthrow of Assad and the rise of al-Julani is interesting, and it's been helpful to at least interrupt that corridor of munitions moving from Iran through Iraq and Syria into Lebanon. And but we don't really exactly know what's going to be happening in Syria. And I've just been putting in there, I don't know about Turkey either. All right. I want to say thank you. I'm going to have to close this really quick. Last thought is just sort of a math. I'm sort of a math person from my first training. Hamas cannot remain a threat. Hamas, the PIJ, the IRGC, the Houthis, the Hezbollah are among those who are committed to the destruction of Israel. All our hostages, alive and dead, must be brought home. That's no negotiation. We have to have it. And the hostages, Hamas won't let the hostages go, as they are their leverage. They are their golden ticket. 2 million people in Gaza are being used as martyrs. Believe it, please understand that. The more they suffer, the more Hamas wins the information war and the psychological war that's being waged in the West, onto the West, and against Israel. We value life, and we do not seek the suffering or death of civilians. What lengths to go to feed those who are being used as martyrs? How to feed people in a war zone where the enemy does not want their people to be fed? These are questions that keep me reading, keep me questioning, keep me wondering, keeping me in touch with my own soul and my own compassion. And I want to say thank you to everyone for being here.